She looked him in the eye, tripped the launch overload, and left him to die. He was only a human escort, dumped on a dead rock with 36 elite killers closing in. The kind of man you forget on a manifest. Grease-stained apron, cheap boots, a tired slouch that read like surrender before the first shot. But when she came back 6 months later to collect his bones, she did not find a grave. She found a mountain of bodies, a warlord kneeling in his own blood, and a small, quiet human who simply refused to die. 6 hours earlier, the air in the galley of the Hollow Star tasted of copper, burnt ozone, and cheap frying oil, and Miles Hooper was wiping grease off a service ladle when the outer hull rang like a struck bell. He did not look up. He tapped the ladle on the rim of the sink, laid it in the rack, and thumbed a switch under the counter that killed the coffee urn's warming coils. The urns hissed. The lights flickered once, that old brownout tremor a boarding cutter throws through a diplomatic freighter when it clamps too hard. Miles counted the seconds between the ring and the second sound. 3 seconds. A slow cutter. Sloppy. The second sound was the airlock giving up. The third was the boots. They came in loud because loud was what raiders sold. 12 Kelthari in the first wave, black plate polished until it drank the corridor lights, plasma lances riding the crook of their forearms like short, angry snakes. Their eyes were the color of wet cinders. Their teeth were filed. Their leader was a lieutenant with 3 chevrons scored into his shoulder plate and a laugh that did not need translation. They found what they expected. A galley, a crying girl, a cook. The girl was 10, if she was a day. Fina Aldros, the Terran ambassador's daughter, worth 6 planets in bride price to the right slaver and 1 entire war to the wrong one. She was crouched behind the coffee urns, pressed into the corner where the countertop met the bulkhead, and her small brown hands were clamped over her ears the way children clamp them when the shouting starts and does not stop. Miles stepped between her and the door. He did not draw a weapon. He was holding a dish towel. He folded it once, twice, and set it on the counter beside the ladle. He did not raise his voice. He did not raise his hands. "You want this quick or loud?" Miles asked. The lieutenant laughed. His translator caught it a beat late and rendered the sound as a wet click. He said something in the throat clicks of High Kelthari that the machine, mercifully, softened. "He says," the translator murmured in flat standard, "that the cook wishes to be first." "Fine," Miles said. "Quick, then." The lieutenant leveled the plasma lance and fired. Miles was not there. He had not moved so much as folded, dropping his weight through his knees the way a man drops a sack of flour off a shelf, and the plasma bolt went where his sternum had been half a heartbeat before. The bolt punched through the far bulkhead and left a coin of molten steel dripping down the wall. The raiders behind the lieutenant flinched from the heat. Miles came up already swinging. His right hand had found the tungsten meat mallet on the prep rack, the ugly little tool he used to flatten cheap protein into something a passenger could swallow. It weighed 9 pounds. It did not care about energy shields. It cared about mass. The mallet came around in an arc that started at his hip and ended in the lieutenant's helmet. The helmet cracked. Then it caved. Then the wall behind it caught what was left, and the bulkhead rang like a struck bell for the second time in a minute. The galley went quiet. That was the first silence. It lasted exactly 1 full breath. Miles used the breath to slide his left foot back, plant his right, and take the mallet off the wall with a wet, sucking sound that made 2 of the raiders flinch. "Loud, then," Miles said. They came at him all at once, because that was what they had been taught to do to prey. Prey clumped. Prey ran. Prey did not step forward. Miles stepped forward. He hit the second raider under the jaw with a rising blow that took the helmet clean off the neck and did not stop until it took the neck too. He hit the third in the knee, dropped him, and swung down through the collarbone as the raider tried to rise. He hit the fourth with the flat, not the edge, because the flat could not miss a torso the size of a beer barrel, and it drove the plasma pack into the raider's own chest until the pack failed. The pack failed loud. The fifth raider was on fire before he understood he was on fire. The sixth was on the deck with a broken hip. The seventh had backed up 2 steps, which was 6 inches farther than he had needed to back up, and Miles took the 6 inches from him. Behind the coffee urns, Fina Aldros stopped crying. She peered through the gap between the urn and the wall with the fixed, unblinking attention of a child who has decided the world she thought she knew is over. Miles kept working. There were still 5 raiders in the galley. There were still 40 behind them in the freighter. There was still a warlord in the boarding cutter waiting to come aboard when the deck was cool. Miles did not know that yet. Miles only knew the geometry in front of him, and the geometry told him to move left. He moved left. 2 raiders swept in from the walk-in cooler doorway. Miles took the plasma bolt across the meat of his left arm on purpose, because taking it there kept it out of the girl behind him, and the arm did not need to work perfectly, only long enough. He caught the first raider by the wrist with his ruined hand and used the raider's own body to eat the second raider's next bolt. Then he swung the mallet up under the second raider's chin and let the tungsten do what tungsten does to bone at close range. The last 3 in the galley made the mistake of trying to fall back. Miles did not let them fall back. Falling back to their friends would only bring the friends closer, and closer was not what he wanted. He wanted a door. He kicked a serving cart into the aisle, took a bread knife off the block with his offhand, and threw it. The knife was not balanced for throwing. It did not matter. It went through a visor at 9 feet and put the raider on the floor. The other 2 ran. Miles let them run. He needed them running. Running raiders told the raiders behind them that the galley was full of something they had not been briefed for, and confused raiders bunched up in doorways, and doorways were where mallets earned their pay. He turned back to the girl. "Fina," he said. His voice was the same voice he had used to ask a passenger if she wanted cream. "Fina, honey, I need you to do something. You're going to crawl under the counter, all the way to the back, behind the flour bins. You know the little space where the pipes go through? That one. You're going to fit. You're going to stay quiet. You are not going to come out until I come get you, not for anyone else, okay?" She stared at him. Her eyes were huge. She had blood on her cheek that was not hers. "Are you a soldier?" she whispered. "No, ma'am," Miles said. He wiped his hands on his apron and left 2 dark smears. "I'm a cook." She nodded, because at that age you take an adult at his word, and she crawled. Miles went back to work. The second wave hit the galley door in a proper stack, 4 raiders wedged in a diamond, and Miles gave them the mallet at the throat height of a Kelthari, which was tall for a human, but shoulder height on a step-stool. He was standing on the step-stool. It felt undignified. It felt correct. The diamond collapsed inward, tangled in the doorway, and Miles worked the tangle like a butcher working a knot of tendon, patient, methodical, using the geometry against them until the geometry gave. He was breathing hard now. He had a plasma burn along his ribs that he was pretending was not there. He had a cut over his eye that was leaking into his eyelashes. He had a bruise blooming across his left cheekbone from the elbow of a raider who had gotten inside his guard for a full second and then paid for the full second. He was 32 years old, and he had not been in a proper fight in 10 years, and his knees were telling him about it. He kept working. 2 decks up, in the flag chamber of the boarding cutter, Zenkar Voth of the Iron Molt watched a tactical readout that was not doing what it was supposed to do. His real name was a triple sequence of jaw clicks and a low harmonic in the throat that only 3 living creatures could pronounce properly. His translator flattened it to Zenkar because Zenkar was as close as human vowels could stumble. He did not mind. He had learned young that his name in another tongue was a courtesy, not a truth. The readout was courtesy too. It said the boarding was 98% complete, that the diplomatic freighter was subdued, that the hostage was secured. It said this because his lieutenants were telling it to say this. It was lying. The corridor cameras had cut to black 8 minutes ago, and the biometric ping on his Lieutenant Kravik had gone from green to flatline, while Jenkar was still peeling off his ceremonial gauntlets. Beside him, his aide Vesik was clicking softly to himself, a molt-tell for pleasure barely suppressed. Vesik's cousin had led the raid on Cinder Gulch 2 winters back. Vesik had suggested this ambush. Vesik had chosen the freighter, the timing, the point of breach. Jenkar liked Vesik. Jenkar did not entirely trust Vesik. 98%, Vesik said, purring. The child is secured. Ambassador Aldros will pay the bride price by dawn cycle. 6 planets. Warlord, you should choose your entry robe. Kravik is dead, Jenkar said. Vesik blinked. It was a very slight blink. The readout says what your cousin's cousin told it to say, Jenkar said. He did not raise his voice. Jenkar had not raised his voice in 12 years, and the last time he had, an entire orbital ring had listened. Kravik's heart is not beating. Neither is Trosk's. Neither is Velian's. Get me a live camera in that galley. Vesik hesitated for exactly the wrong length of time. Now, Jenkar said, still soft, or I will get one myself, and I will do it with your comm thread. The camera came up. The galley was very quiet in the feed. There was a fine haze of pulverized bulkhead insulation drifting through the air, and the emergency lights had kicked in, painting everything in the color of old blood. Jenkar counted. He was good at counting. He counted 19 Kelthari on the deck, 19 of his best. In the center of the frame, sitting on an upturned crate with his forearms braced across his knees, was a short, tired human in a stained apron. He was breathing hard. He had a plasma burn across his ribs that was smoking through the fabric of his shirt. His left arm was hanging wrong. He had a tungsten meat mallet in his right hand and a bread knife shoved through his apron string like a butcher's second tool. Blood dripped off the mallet in the slow rhythm of a leaking tap. He was looking directly at the camera. He was not smiling. He was not glaring. He was looking at the camera the way a man looks at a delivery driver who has knocked twice and is about to knock a third time. Vesik made a small sound. It might have been a laugh. It might have been the beginning of a prayer. Jenkar did not turn. His file, the Warlord said. Now, Vesik's claws danced. The Terran manifest for the Hollow Star came up on the side display. Jenkar's translator began to whisper. Miles Hooper, 32 years old. Born Holden's Reach, a high-gravity mining colony on the outer rim. Gravity 1.7 Terran standard. Atmosphere thin and cold. Occupation, certified merchant marine cook, licensed for interspecies dietary compliance. Previous voyages, 17. Disciplinary record. 1 written warning for insubordination to a chief steward. Preferred beverage, coffee, black. Continue, Jenkar said. Vesik scrolled. The translator continued. Cook, 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 cook. At the bottom of the file, in a sealed line that had not opened for anyone in a decade, there was one more entry. Warlord, Vesik said, and his voice was strange. This is not usual. Read it. It is a Terran military designation, sealed. I do not have clearance. Read it. Vesik read it. He read it 3 times before he believed it. Jenkar watched his aide's throat move, and the color of his aide's throat change, and he understood, in the slow, cold way that all warlords eventually understand things, that his aide was afraid of the second half of the file. Warlord, Vesik said, this human was a Reach Ranger. Jenkar's ears went flat against his skull, not for long, just long enough to be noticed. Vesik noticed. Vesik pretended not to notice. The Reach Rangers were a rumor Jenkar had chased for 6 years and never confirmed. Earth's answer to problems the atmosphere could not solve. Men and women pulled from the high-gravity colonies, raised on rock that killed weak children before they walked, sent to the places where the treaties frayed and the air did not exist, and the enemy had already won. The Rangers did not wear uniforms, they did not carry banners, they did not exist, they only left aftermaths. "Continue reading," Jenkar said. "There is a tally," Vesic said, and now his voice had begun to shake. "Cinder Gulch, 2 winters ago, my cousin's raid. Read the tally. 35 Molt raiders at Cinder Gulch, 32 found dead in a canyon 4 days later. Tungsten fragments recovered from the throats of all 32. Jenkar did not move. 3 names, Vesic said, and his voice had gone very small, were left open. Whose? Vesic did not answer. Jenkar's ears did not flatten this time. Something in his face went very still, and the stillness spread down his spine and into his tail, which had been twitching, and stopped the twitch as if a switch had been thrown. "Vesic," he said. "Whose?" "Velsign," Vesic said. "Crocs." He stopped, and Vesic did not answer. Jenkar turned his head, slowly, the way a large animal turns when it has decided a smaller animal has become interesting. His yellow eyes fixed on his aide. The tip of his tail lifted, once, and settled. "Vesic," he said. "The 3rd name." "Warlord," Vesic whispered. "It is mine." The room was silent for the length of a full jaw click. Then Jenkar smiled, and Vesic, who had known the Warlord for 11 years and had watched him smile at coronations and at executions and at the birth of his own daughter, took an involuntary step back from the smile he saw now. "You suggested this ambush," Jenkar said. "Warlord, you chose the freighter." "Warlord, I did not. You chose the timing." Vesic's throat worked. His claws opened and closed against his palm. "Warlord," he said, "I did not know he was aboard. I would never have—" "You knew," Jenkar said, "that he was still walking. You knew that 3 names were still open. You have known this for 2 winters." He tilted his head. The smile did not move. "And yet you steered me here." Vesic's mouth opened. Vesic's mouth closed. Jenkar looked back at the tactical display. The tired human in the galley was standing up now. He was rolling his shoulder. He was checking the tape on the mallet's grip. "You wanted him to end me," Jenkar said softly, "so that your cousin's death would be paid, and so that your cousin's clan would rise in the void. I left. This is what you wanted." "Warlord, and now," Jenkar said, "you have brought a Reach Ranger to my deck." He turned. He clicked his claws once, a small gesture. His personal guard, 4 Molt of the Crest Guard caste, drifted a half-step closer to Vesic. Vesic saw them. Vesic did not move. "I will decide what to do with you," Jenkar said. "After I have met the man you brought me." He walked to the boarding ramp. He did not put on his ceremonial robes. The corridor to the galley smelled of ozone, cheap oil, and something Jenkar's nose recognized only from very old memories. Hot copper, which was the color of Molt blood before it darkened. He walked past the bodies. He counted them again as he walked. 19 inside the galley, 6 more in the corridor. His people had died in a running fight and had never gotten their footing. He stopped at the galley door. The tired human was sitting on the crate again. He had bandaged his ribs with a strip torn off a dish towel. He had wrapped his left arm to his chest with the string of his apron. The mallet lay across his knees. His right hand held a mug of coffee. He was drinking it. He looked up when the Warlord's shadow crossed the threshold. "Warlord," Miles said. Jenkar tilted his head. "You know me," he said. His translator flattened the click at the end of his name. "You've got the pauldron with the double horn," Miles said. "That's Iron Molt. Only one Warlord in Iron Molt wears both horns pointing back. That's you, sir. You served against my clan at Cinder Gulch." "I did. 32 of my raiders." 32, yes, sir. 3 names open." "Yes, sir." "One of those names," Jenkar said, is on this ship." Miles took a sip of coffee. He grimaced. The coffee was bad. It had been bad an hour ago. It was worse now. "I figured," he said. "You knew Vesic was here." "No, sir. Didn't know his name, but somebody sold this ship to somebody. That kind of sale, it's usually inside. I'd been keeping half an eye on the manifest since we picked up the ambassador. The manifest had a name on it that shouldn't have been on it. Molt aide de camp, riding on a Terran diplomatic bird. That's not somebody along for the ride. That's somebody with a map." Jenkar was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the mallet on the human's knees. "You have a child behind the counter," he said. "I do. She is worth 6 planets." "She's worth more than that, sir." Jenkar's ears twitched, not flat, curious. "To whom?" he said. "To her dad," Miles said. Jenkar considered that. "Ranger," he said. "Cook," Miles said. "I retired." "You retired?" 10 years ago, yes, sir. Wanted quiet. Wanted a job where the worst thing that happens is you burn the bread." And yet, Miles agreed. The Warlord stepped into the galley. His guard did not follow him. He stopped 6 feet from the crate. He was 2.5 meters tall in his combat plates, and he had claws that had opened the hulls of orbital gunships. He looked down at the tired human who had killed 25 of his people in 11 minutes. "There are still 15 of my raiders on this ship," Jenkar said. "I know. They will come here in the next 90 seconds. "I know that too, sir." "Do you intend to kill them?" Miles took another sip of coffee. He set the mug down. He picked up the mallet. "That's up to you, sir," he said. "You can order them off, or you can order them at me. Either way's the same amount of paperwork for you. But it's a whole lot more paperwork for them." Jenkar laughed. He had not laughed in 6 months. He was surprised by the sound, and Miles was surprised by the sound, and the coffee urns behind them were the only things in the room that did not seem surprised. The little girl behind the flour bins made a small noise, halfway between a squeak and a giggle, and covered her mouth immediately. "Ranger," Jenkar said, "sit down, drink your coffee. I will speak with my people." "Sir," Miles said, "with respect, I'd rather stand." "I will speak with my people," Jenkar repeated, "and then we will speak. You have my word." "Sir, with respect, your word doesn't include your aid." Jenkar's smile came back. It was smaller this time. It was sadder. "My aid," he said, "no longer has a word." He clicked his claws. In the corridor behind him, there was a very short scuffle. It ended in something that was not quite a scream. When it was done, Vesic was still alive, but he was on his knees, and his crest guard were holding his arms behind him, and one of his eyes was already swelling shut. He was dragged into the galley and pushed down on the deck 3 paces from the crate. He looked up at the human. He said something in Kelthari that the translator did not render. Miles looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Jenkar. "You want him?" Miles asked. "He is mine," Jenkar said. "He led the raid," Miles said. "He led the raid at Cinder Gulch. His cousin got the credit. He gave the orders." "I know. His cousin's dead. So are 28 of the men he sent. He's the 3rd name." "I know. He's the reason I stopped sleeping through the night for a 1.5 years. Jenkar's ears flattened. "Ranger," he said softly, "you may take him, but if you take him, I will owe you a debt. I do not like to owe debts. I would prefer to pay you a debt. I would prefer that you take his life as a gift from me." Miles considered that. "That's generous, sir," he said, "but I already owe you one, on account of you not walking into this galley shooting." "You owe me nothing." "Yeah," Miles said. "I do. You listened. That's more than most warlords do. So I'm going to say this once, and then you and I are going to decide what to do about your 15 boys in the corridor. Vesic doesn't belong to you, and he doesn't belong to me. He belongs to a room somewhere with the families of the men he sold at Cinder Gulch. That's where he goes. Alive, talking. He's got names in his head, and I want them out of his head." Jankar was quiet for a long time. "Ranger," he said, "you are not what I was told to expect." "No, sir." "What?" Jankar said. "Were you expecting?" Miles set the mug down. "A shorter shift," he said. Vesic chose that moment to make his move. Some of the best assassins in the galaxy have moved in the last second because the last second is the one nobody watches. And Vesic had trained under some of the best assassins in the galaxy. He was on his knees, arms held behind him, one eye swollen shut. That was 3 disadvantages. He had 1 advantage. He had a holdout blade in the folded skin under his second dorsal plate. And neither of his crest guard had thought to check there, because the crest guard did not know that the second dorsal plate had a fold. Miles knew. The tell was in Vesic's shoulder. It was very small. It was the involuntary tensing that any species with a scapula does when it is about to reach behind its own back. Miles had been reading that tell in one form or another since he was 11, when his father had first put a knife in his hand and shown him how a man telegraphs a strike. Vesic reached. Miles was already moving. The mallet came up and around and down in a single arc that started at Miles's ribs and ended in the crown of Vesic's skull, and the crown of Vesic's skull did not survive the arc. There was a wet, final sound. Vesic went face down on the deck with the holdout blade still half drawn from the fold. The blade skittered across the tile and stopped against Jankar's boot. The Warlord looked down at it. He looked up at the human. "He would have gone for me," Jankar said. "He would have," Miles said, "not you." "I know." Jankar's ears twitched once. He knelt. He picked up the holdout blade. He examined it. He nodded once, slowly. "Ranger." "Sir." "You did that quickly." "I've been reading his shoulder for the last 3 minutes, sir. I'd rather have taken him alive, but he wasn't going to let us have that. You saved my life. You saved the girl's. I have not," Jankar said, "saved the girl's life. You did the moment you came through that door without a gun in your hand, sir." Jankar stood up. He looked at the body of his aide. He looked at the 19 bodies of his best raiders. He looked at the small, tired human in the stained apron, and at the child peeking out from behind the flour bins, and at the coffee urn still hissing gently on the counter. He walked to the intercom. He thumbed it open. He spoke in the clicks and low harmonics of High Kelthari. His voice was low, his voice was calm. The intercom translated for the human's benefit because the Warlord had noticed the translator on the counter and had decided the human should hear. "To the 15 remaining raiders of the Iron Moult aboard this freighter," Jankar said, "you will lay down your weapons. You will assemble in the main cargo hold. You will not enter the galley. You will not enter the corridor leading to the galley. You will not raise a hand against any Terran on this vessel. If you do these things, you will return to my flagship alive. If you do not do these things, I will not need to punish you. The cook will do it for me." There was a very long silence on the intercom. Then a voice, small and cautious, said, "Warlord, is this truly your order?" "It is." "Warlord, the aide Vesic." "Vesic," Jankar said, "is dead. He was the 3rd name on the Cinder Gulch tally. He led you to a Reach Ranger and did not tell you. Lay down your weapons, my brothers. This day is not what we were told it was." The intercom clicked off. 2 decks down, in the main cargo hold, 15 sets of plasma lances were laid one by one on a bulkhead crate. 2 decks up in the galley, a small human in a stained apron sat back down on his crate and reached for his coffee. "Warlord," he said, "you want a cup? It's not great, but it's hot." Jankar considered. "I do not drink Terran coffee." "Well," Miles said, "that's your first mistake." Jankar laughed again. It was not the end. It was, in a way that neither of them yet knew, only the 3rd page of a very long shift. Because when the Warlord turned to give the order for his cutter to disengage, the tactical readout on his forearm blinked red, and the red said something that Jankar did not want to read. A second cutter was inbound, not a Molt cutter. Not any cutter he recognized. Its transponder was off. Its approach was fast. Its trajectory was locked on the hollow star. "Ranger," Jenkar said quietly. "I see it, sir," Miles said. He had not moved. He was looking at his own forearm, at a small, unobtrusive comm bead he had not been wearing an hour ago, and definitely had been wearing all along. The bead was blinking red. "You have a scan on my deck." "I have a scan on every deck, sir. I've been on this bird 4 months. A cook has time." Jenkar's ears flicked forward. "Whose cutter is that?" "That," Miles said, standing up, "is exactly what I was afraid of." He rolled his shoulder. The plasma burn on his ribs was crusting over. His left arm was still hanging wrong. He picked up the mallet. "That," he said, "is the Kelthari Ash Suzerainty's second air cutter, Yorakesh's private flag, which means Vesic wasn't working alone. Vesic was working for the Ash, which means the Ash wanted you dead, and they wanted the girl in Ash hands, and they wanted a Reach Ranger to be the one who did the killing so nobody could blame them, which means, sir, they were going to hand me the mallet and say, 'Thank you.' And which means, in about 4 minutes, they are going to be very, very upset to find that I have not done the killing they hoped for." Jenkar's tail lifted very slowly. "You knew this?" "I suspected it, sir, about an hour ago, when the aide Vesic walked past the coffee urns and did not glance at the girl." "Explain." "A slaver looks at a hostage. Every time, can't help it. It's how they think. He did not look at her. He was checking sightlines to the galley. He was measuring the distance from the ambassador's suite to your boarding ramp. He was not a slaver. He was not even really an aide. He was a spotter. He was setting up the shot for whoever came next, and whoever came next is on that cutter." "Ranger." "Sir?" "Why?" Jenkar said softly. "Did you not tell me this before I sent my order?" "Because your order was the right one, sir. And because if I'd told you before you gave it, you'd have given a different one, and a different one wouldn't have saved the 15 boys in your cargo hold. This way, they live. This way, they walk off the ship in 20 minutes, and they go home to their kits, and they remember that their warlord chose the harder road when a Reach Ranger was in the room. That's worth something. To them, to you, to me." Jenkar was very quiet. "You," he said, "are a cook." "Yes, sir." "You are also," Jenkar said, "the reason I am about to fight a suzerain." "Yes, sir." "Ranger." "Sir?" Jenkar's smile came back. It was a real smile this time. It had teeth. His teeth were notably not filed. "I did not know," he said, "that a shift could be this long." "Welcome to the service industry, sir." The ash cutter clamped onto the freighter's starboard flank with the sharp bark of a docking collar making a hard seal. Jenkar felt the ship shudder through his boots. Miles felt it through the deck plate under his crate and stood up in the same breath, testing his knees the way a man tests the ice on a pond in early winter. They held. "Warlord," Miles said, "your cargo hold. Your 15 boys. Are they going to fight for you? Or are they going to sit this one out?" "They will fight." "You sure? Because they don't know me, and your aide sold them a story, maybe more than one story." "Vesic's story died with Vesic," Jenkar said. "My raiders are not fools. They will have listened to my voice on the intercom. They will have heard me name their brother a traitor. They will fight. Then we've got 15 guns to give them. And we've got about 90 seconds before Yorakesh's second air comes through that airlock with his personal cadre. Anything you want to tell me about his personal cadre?" Jenkar's ears flattened. "Yes. Now would be good. Yorakesh's second air travels with an honor guard of 12 Void Cursed. They are the finest ceremonial killers of the Ash suzerainty. Their armor is inlaid with a metamaterial that displaces energy weapons. A plasma lance will not touch them. Only kinetic force." Miles's eyebrows went up, just slightly. "Sir," he said, "that's the best news I've had all shift." "You find this pleasing?" "I find it convenient, sir. My mallet works fine on soft armor, but it earns its pay on the hard stuff." Jankar looked at the mallet, and then at the human, and then, for one very long second, back at the mallet. "Ranger," he said quietly, "in the Iron Moult, we say that a weapon does not choose its wielder. The wielder chooses the weapon. Do you agree?" "Sir," Miles said, "I don't have an opinion on that. I do know that my father was a butcher. He rebalanced this mallet for me on my 10th birthday. He took a 1/4 ounce off the head, added it to the haft, and told me it was mine when I was old enough to lift it. I lifted it that afternoon. He said I was old enough. Then he taught me how to swing it without breaking my own wrist." "Your father?" "Callum Hooper, Halden's Reach, died when I was 14. "How?" "Working." Roof gave in a low grav pocket on the north face. He was down there 20 hours before they got to him. He lasted 18. Jankar's tail settled very slowly. "And your mother?" "Died having my little sister. My sister and I raised each other. She's why I stopped soldiering. I put a wall around her when I mustered out, and I told the world it wasn't allowed through the wall anymore. Then I signed on to a freighter because a cook is a job you can do and still not be gone when it matters. She's 28 now. She teaches literacy to the Outer Rim kids. She's twice as tough as I am, and she's never lifted a mallet in her life." "Her name?" "Nell." Jankar considered that. "Ranger," he said, "if I do not survive the next 1/4 hour, and if you do, I would ask you to carry a message to my own daughter. Her name is Voska. She is 9 of your years. She lives on my clan hold at the 3rd moon of Kar. Tell her that her father died standing beside a human cook and that he was not ashamed." Miles nodded, once, slowly. "I'll tell her, sir, but you're not dying today." "How do you know?" "Because I don't have time to make the trip. I've got a girl behind the counter and a shift to finish, and I'd like to be home for my sister's birthday next month. Nobody's dying today except 12 void cursed and 1 second heir. That's the shift. Let's work it." The airlock behind the galley wall began to whine. Miles rolled his shoulder one more time. He picked up a second mallet from the prep rack, a smaller one, and held it out to Jankar. The Warlord looked at it. He took it. His hand was massive. The mallet looked like a child's toy in it. "Ranger," Jankar said, "you carry 2. You looked like you might want one." "I have claws." "Claws are personal, sir. A mallet keeps things at a friendly distance." Jankar's laugh was quieter this time. He tested the mallet's weight. He rolled his own shoulder. "Ranger." "Sir?" "When this is over." "Yes, sir. I would like to try your bad coffee." "Sir," Miles said, "if we live, I will make you a better one." The airlock cycled open. The void cursed came through in a wedge, 12 black-armored figures whose plates drank the light and did not give it back. Their armor was not silent. It hummed, a low, subaudible hum that Miles felt in his teeth. At their center walked the second heir, Yorakesh, taller than Jankar by half a head, his crest a bright vermilion, his mouth already open around a laugh he had not yet decided to let out. "Warlord Voth," Yorakesh said. His translator gave his voice a lazy, drawling quality. "You seem to have misplaced your aid. I have come to collect the girl, and unfortunately, your body." "You have come," Jankar said, "to be a lesson." Yorakesh's laugh finally came out. It was the wrong laugh. It stopped very quickly when his eyes tracked past Jankar to the small, tired human standing at the Warlord's shoulder with a tungsten mallet in his hand. "Warlord," Yorakesh said, and his voice had changed a little, "you are protected by a cook." "I am protected," Jankar said, "by a Reach Ranger." Yorakesh went very still. Miles wiped his mallet on his apron. It left a fresh smear. The apron had a lot of smears now. It was going to be a lot to launder. Ranger, Yurakesh said. His voice was flat. There are no Reach Rangers. Reach Rangers are a Terran fable. Yes, sir, Miles said. That's what we prefer. Yurakesh's crest went flat against his skull. He gave one order, low and fast, in a dialect the translator did not fully render, and his void curse came forward as a single ripple. 12 black plates, 12 energy-displacing metamaterial hides, 12 of the finest ceremonial killers in the Ash suzerainty. Miles stepped out to meet them. He did not step back into the galley. He did not use the doorway as a choke point. He stepped forward into the corridor, and the corridor was wide enough for 3 abreast, and 3 abreast was all Miles needed the corridor to be. His breathing was even. His knees hurt, his ribs hurt, his left arm was still hanging wrong. None of it mattered. On Holden's reach, the cold got into bone and stayed. So pain was a bill you paid on the 7th day, and today was not the 7th day. The first Void Cursed took his mallet high in the crown. The plates were hard. The plates were not harder than tungsten backed by high-gravity muscle. There was a crack, a sound like a walnut yielding, and the first Void Cursed folded forward into his own knees. The second Void Cursed learned. He took his stance low, blade forward, and Miles let him have the low stance and swung the mallet at the seam between the pauldron and the neck plate. The seam was not much. It was enough. The Void Cursed dropped the blade, which was the wrong hand to drop the blade with, and Miles took the blade off the deck with his boot toe, flipped it upward, caught it with his bad hand at the base of the fingers where the bad hand still worked, and put it through the third Void Cursed's visor. Behind him, Jenkar was moving. The Warlord did not use the mallet Miles had given him for its first swing. He used his claws, because Jenkar was still Jenkar, and Jenkar's claws had opened the hulls of orbital gunships. The fourth Void Cursed lost most of the front of his helmet to a single upward rake. The fifth was flung down the corridor and into the sixth, and Jenkar's mallet came down twice, once for each, and the corridor rang like a struck bell for the 3rd time in an hour. Yurakesh took a step back. Yurakesh did not want to take a step back. Yurakesh had never taken a step back from anything before. Yurakesh had killed a battle brother of the Karthai in single combat before he had grown his adult crest. Yurakesh had opened the throat of his own uncle at the age of 14 for a slight to his mother. Yurakesh had done things that his people sang about in low, admiring voices at coronations. Yurakesh had never seen a cook take a mallet to a Void-cursed helmet before. Yurakesh had never seen a cook take a mallet to 7 Void-cursed helmets in 20 seconds before. His remaining honor guard rallied. They did the honorable thing. They closed on Jenkar and Miles in a coordinated pincer, moving in perfect drill, the way they had been drilled since they were young enough to hold a weapon, two-handed. 2 came at Jenkar from the front. 2 came at Miles from the rear. Miles felt the 2 from the rear the way he had felt everything else on this shift, as a small pressure in the back of the neck, an animal knowing. A cook's ear for a pot beginning to burn on a stove behind him. He turned into the 2 from the rear. He did not use the mallet on the first one. He used the mallet's haft. He drove the butt of the haft into the visor at the level of the eyeslits, and the visor's metamaterial did not care about kinetic force delivered at a right angle, and the visor gave. The Void Cursed staggered. Miles took the blade off the Void Cursed's belt as the Void Cursed staggered, and Miles put the blade through the eyeslits with the practiced motion of a man opening a can. The second Void Cursed made the mistake of taking the moment to raise his energy weapon. Energy weapons did not work well against metamaterial armor. The second Void Cursed had been trained to remember this against enemies. He had not been trained to remember this against himself. He fired past Miles at Miles's back, expecting the plasma to burn through, and instead, the plasma splashed off Miles's own armor. Miles was not wearing armor. Miles was wearing an apron. The plasma splashed off the plating of the corridor behind Miles, ricocheted up, and took the second void cursed in his own throat under his own chin at close range. The second void cursed did not survive the second void cursed's own weapon. Miles turned back to help Jenkar. Jenkar did not need help. Jenkar had already put both his void cursed on the deck. The Warlord's crest was flecked with blood that was not his. His teeth, unfiled, were slightly bared. His yellow eyes were bright with something Miles had not seen in a Kelthari's eyes before and would not have known to name. It was joy. "Ranger," Jenkar said. "Only Yorakesh remains." Yorakesh was still in the airlock. Yorakesh had a personal blade half drawn. Yorakesh's crest was flat, which was the Kelthari tell for fear, and Yorakesh's mouth was very slightly open, which was the Kelthari tell for prayer. "Second heir," Jenkar said. "You have a choice." Yorakesh made no sound. "You may walk," Jenkar said, "back through that airlock. You may return to your father. You may tell him that his second heir met a Reach Ranger and lived to tell of it. You may spend the rest of your life telling this story, and I promise you it will not be a small story. Or you may draw your blade, and you may die in this corridor, and no one will ever tell your story at all." Yorakesh was silent for a very long time. His hand was on his blade. His hand was on his blade. His hand was on his blade. His hand came off his blade. He walked backward. One step, then two, then three, then he turned and walked with something like dignity through the airlock. The docking collar disengaged behind him with a soft, embarrassed hiss. His cutter fell away from the freighter and burned dark into the void. Jenkar exhaled. "Ranger," he said. "That was well done." "Sir," Miles said, "I'm going to sit down now." He sat down, not gracefully. He sat down on the deck with his back against the corridor wall and let the wall take his weight. The plasma burn across his ribs was leaking through the dish towel bandage. His left arm was hanging in a way that made his shoulder ache from what was pretending not to be a dislocation. His mouth tasted of copper and something worse. Jenkar knelt beside him. The Warlord took Miles's chin between two claws with a gentleness Miles had not expected, tilted his face toward the corridor light, and made a small, disapproving sound. "Ranger, you have a punctured lung." "Yeah," Miles said. "I noticed. You are bleeding into your chest." "I know, sir." "You will die." "Not today," Miles said. "Sir, in my belt, left side, cauterizer. Would you get it out for me, please? My left arm's not doing what I want it to do." Jenkar drew the cauterizer from Miles's belt. It was small, it was ugly, it was Terran field issue, matte black, with a thumb switch that Miles had used 7 times in his life and never on himself. He had, however, watched a courseman use it on his lieutenant on a mountainside on Halden's Reach when he was 19, and the corpsman had said, "Don't be delicate, fill the hole," and had filled the hole. "Give it to me," Miles said. "I need my right hand for this. Sir, if you could hold my left arm still, that would help." Jenkar held Miles's left arm still. Miles thumbed the cauterizer on. He put the tip against the ragged edge of the plasma burn, where the entry point had chewed through his rib cage between the 5th and 6th rib. He pressed. The cauterizer hissed. The smell of cooking meat filled the corridor, and Miles Hooper did not scream, because Miles Hooper had been raised on Halden's Reach, where the cold got into bone and stayed, and where screaming did not fix anything a boy had not already broken. He worked the cauterizer around the edges of the burn until the burn stopped bleeding. Then he thumbed the cauterizer off. Then he passed it back to Jenkar, and his hand was steady. "There," he said. "Not delicate. Filled the hole." Jenkar was staring at him. "Ranger." "Sir, your kind does this." "My kind does what has to be done, sir. Same as anybody's kind. We just don't have as much armor between us and the doing." "You do not scream." Screaming's a bill I don't feel like paying today, sir. Jenkar closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, he stood, and he walked to the intercom on the corridor wall, and he thumbed it open. "To all my raiders in the cargo hold," he said, "stand down. Your warlord lives. The traitor Vesic is dead. The Ash second heir has withdrawn. There will be no more killing today. Your warlord thanks you for your loyalty." He clicked off the intercom. He walked back to Miles. "Ranger," he said, "you will come with me to my flagship. My chief physician will treat your lung. My chief cook will not treat the coffee. When you are healed, we will speak. There is much to speak of." "Sir, with respect, the girl." "Yes. The girl comes with us, or the girl goes home. Not the second heir, not the Ash, not anywhere Vesic picked. She goes home, sir. I gave her father my word when I signed on for this contract." "You did not sign on for this contract as a cook, Ranger." "No, sir. I signed on for this contract as a cook. Then I signed on for a second contract, a private one, with the ambassador. He asked me if I could keep his little girl alive. I said I would try. That's all he needed." Jenkar's ears went flat. "He knew who you were." "He knew what I was, sir. Some fathers know things when it comes to their daughters, even ambassadors." Jenkar was quiet for a very long moment. "Ranger," he said, "you have done more today than I could have asked. I will personally escort the ambassador's daughter to her father. I give you my word. I owe you a debt. This is how I begin to pay it." "Thank you, sir. Now come, stand. My physician waits." Miles Hooper let the warlord of the Iron Moult help him to his feet. His left arm was hanging wrong. His ribs were sealed but not healed. His knees hurt from a fight 32 years old and 11 minutes long. He limped down the corridor with a hand on the warlord's shoulder plate. The little girl came out from behind the flour bins and walked between them, holding on to Miles's apron with one small brown fist, and she did not let go. They walked past Vesic's body. They walked past the 19 bodies. They walked past the 7 void cursed, and the 8, and the 9th, and the 10th, and the 11th, and the 12th. They walked into the boarding cutter. The Moult raiders in the cargo hold parted for them like water. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them looked at anything except the small human in the stained apron and the small child in the diplomatic pinafore and the great warlord walking between them like an honor guard of one. On the flagship, the physician worked on Miles for 2 hours. The lung was worse than he had let on. The lung was much worse than he had let on. The physician made a Kelthari sound that Miles had heard once before from his father, when his father had lifted a support beam off a young miner and had seen the young miner's leg. It was not a sound of despair. It was a sound of respect for the amount of work that was left to do. Miles slept for 2 days. He woke to find Jenkar sitting on a stool beside the bed. The warlord had not slept. Miles could tell. He could always tell. He had a sister who worked too hard, and he could read the shape of a face that had not seen a pillow in 48 hours. "Warlord? Ranger? How's the girl?" "With her father, on her way back to Terran space aboard a diplomatic cutter of the Kartai Neutrality, escorted by 3 of my own war vessels. She is safe. She sent you this." Jenkar held up a small paper folded into the shape of a bird. Miles took it. He unfolded it. Inside, in the round, careful handwriting of a child who has been taught to shape her letters, it said, "Thank you for the shift, Mr. Cook, from Fina." There was a small drawing at the bottom of a stick figure with a mallet. The stick figure was smiling. Miles looked at the drawing for a long time. He folded the paper back into the shape of a bird. He put it under his pillow. "How's the ambassador?" "Alive, grateful. He asked me to tell you that your contract has been terminated and that a new one has been offered at a rate you may wish to negotiate." "What contract?" "He would like you," Jenkar said, "to train his personal guard, all of it, for as long as you are willing. He offers a home on any world of your choosing. He offers a stipend that will keep your sister comfortable for the rest of her life. He offers his own service, in whatever form you may require. Miles was quiet for a long moment. Warlord. Yes, Ranger. Was that your idea or his? His. He came to it before I could offer you my own version. What's your version? Jenkar stood up. He crossed the room. He picked up a small object off a table and brought it back. It was a Kelthari sigil ring, worn smooth by generations of thumbs. It was the ring of a warlord second in command. Ranger, Jenkar said, the Iron Molt has been without a proper second in command since I killed the last one for treason 9 years ago. I have been holding the seat open because I have not met a warrior I trusted to fill it. I have met one now. I offer you the seat. I offer you my ring. I offer you a command of 600 Molt Raiders who will follow you into whatever void you choose. I offer you my daughter's oath as her aunt-in-arms. I offer you a stipend that will keep your sister and your sister's sister comfortable for the next 7 generations. Miles looked at the ring. He looked at it for a very long time. Warlord. Yes, Ranger. That is the most generous offer I have ever been given, in any language, on any world. I know, and I'm going to say no. I know. You know? Ranger, Jenkar said, I have watched you for 3 days. I have watched you refuse the physician's pain medication because it dulled the taste of the terrible coffee my chief cook made you. I have watched you patch a scared kit into your bedside comm to speak to your sister. I have watched you fold a paper bird under your pillow like a boy. I knew you would say no before I offered, but I had to offer, because the offer honors us both. Miles nodded. Slowly, he handed the ring back. Thank you, sir, truly, sincerely, from all of me. You have a counter? I have a counter, sir. I would like a real coffee, brewed by a Terran, on a Terran world. I would like a week off minimum. I would like somebody else to mop the galley of the Hollow Star, because I'm not going back to mop it myself. I would like a small ship for me and my sister, one we can live on when she's between teaching jobs, something that flies quiet. And I would like your word, sir, that if the Ash suzerainty ever comes back looking for the ambassador's daughter, or for me, or for my sister, you will be there before they are. That is a small counter, Ranger. It is what I need, sir. You do not want the seat. I do not do windows, sir. Jenkar tilted his head. His translator whispered the idiom into his ear, and Jenkar's ears flicked forward in the Kelthari equivalent of a slow smile. You do not do windows. No, sir, ask any cook. It's not in the job description. Jenkar laughed. It was the 4th time he had laughed in 3 days. It was the 4th time he had laughed since a small human in a stained apron had asked him if he wanted this quick or loud. He laughed until his crest fluttered, and he laughed until his tail lifted, and when he stopped laughing, he stood, and he took Miles Hooper's uninjured hand between both of his enormous claws, and he squeezed it with a gentleness that was itself the Iron Molt's oath. Ranger, Jenkar said, you will have your coffee, you will have your week, you will have your ship, you will have my word, and though you will not sit in my second-in-command seat, you will always be welcome to sit at my table, as will your sister, as will the ambassador's daughter, as will anyone you name. Thank you, sir. There is one more thing, sir. Vesik's ring, Jenkar said. He drew a second ring from a pouch at his belt. It was smaller than the first. It was blackened. It had been Vesik's. It was Vesik's no longer. I would like you to take it back to the families at Cinder Gulch. Tell them that the third name is closed. Tell them who closed it. Tell them from me that the Iron Molt owes the Outer Rim a debt, and that the debt has been noted, and that the debt will be paid in whatever coin the families choose to name. Miles took the ring. He looked at it. It was black. It was small. It was final. I'll take it home, sir. Take a Molt cutter. I will send you with an escort. 10 warriors of my personal guard. They will not enter Holden's reach with you. They will remain in orbit. They will be there if you need them. They will not be there if you do not. This is my second gift. Thank you, sir. Jenkar bowed, very slightly, very sincerely. He walked to the door. He paused at the door. He turned back. Ranger. Sir. 35 Molt raiders at Cinder Gulch. 32 dead in a canyon. 3 names. Yes, sir. You closed the 3rd name in my galley, not in my hold. Yes, sir. How did you know, Jenkar said softly, that I would let you close it? How did you know that I would not simply raise my own claws when you swung the mallet at my aid? Miles was quiet for a long moment. Because, he said, when you walked into that galley, you did not draw a gun. You did not draw a claw. You did not raise your voice. You had 18 dead of your best on the deck and a small human in an apron looking at you. And you asked me the correct question. You asked if I would sit and drink my coffee while you spoke to your people. That is not the question of a warlord who intends to have his aid back. That is the question of a warlord who intends to let his aid answer for his own debts. I read your shoulder, sir, same as I read Vesik's. Jenkar considered that. Ranger, he said, you are dangerous. No, sir, not really. I'm stubborn. Where I'm from, the cold gets into your bones and stays, so a man learns to keep walking after he ought to have stopped, that's all. We are not invincible. We bleed. We break. We die. We just make the other fellow die first. Jenkar's ears flattened, then lifted again. That sentence, he said, will be carved above the door of my war hall. Sir, with respect, don't. It sounds better than it is. It's just what my father used to say when he was tired. Nevertheless, yes, sir. Jenkar left. Miles Hooper lay back on the bed. He took the paper bird from under his pillow. He unfolded it. He looked at the stick figure with the mallet, and at the round, careful handwriting, and at the smile on the small face of the small child who had drawn it. He folded the bird back up. He put it in his shirt pocket over his heart. He was going home. 6 months later, on a small ship named the Second Shift, Miles Hooper was standing at the galley stove of his own vessel when the comm chimed. He wiped his hands on his apron. The apron was clean. He had bought 7 new ones. He was working on his way through them. His sister was in the passenger bay, reading a book about the migratory patterns of high-altitude birds on Terran mountaintops, because his sister had time for things like that now. The comm was Jenkar. Ranger. Warlord. I am well. My daughter is well. My clan is well. The Ash suzerainty is quiet. The second heir, Yorakesh, has been demoted to third heir, which is a small demotion but a large embarrassment, and his father does not speak his name at table. Good. I am calling for a small favor. Sir, my daughter Voska, Jenkar said, would like to know how to make a Terran cup of coffee. She has read the drawing that Fina Aldros sent to her, which Fina Aldros drew for you. She is fascinated by the mallet. She is more fascinated by the apron. She wishes to correspond with your sister. Miles's mouth twitched. His sister was going to laugh at him for a week. I'll have my sister write her, sir. Also, sir, there is a matter of the Ash suzerainty, Jenkar said, which is not entirely quiet. There is a small task. I would ask you not to accept it. I would ask you only to know that if you did accept it, you would be met at the edge of the Ash system by 600 Molt raiders and 1 warlord who owes you a debt. Sir, yes. I do not do windows. I know. But I make good coffee. I know. Send me the coordinates. Jenkar's laugh, when it came through the comm, was the 5th in his life since he had met Miles Hooper. It was the loudest. Miles hung up the comm. He went back to his stove. He was making stew. It was a Terran stew, one his father had taught him, with more black pepper than was strictly polite, and the smell of it filled the small galley of the Second Shift, the way the smell of his mother's coffee had filled a small kitchen on Holden's Reach a very long time ago. He wiped his hands on his apron. He tasted the stew. He added more pepper. Behind him, from the passenger bay, his sister called out that dinner had better be worth the wait. He said it would be. It was. What a journey, what a ride. The real weight in this story is not the mallet, and it is not the Warlord's ring, and it is not the 600 raiders. It is the quiet, stubborn truth of a man who has decided that the people at his back are worth more than any seat that could be offered him. If you loved this story, drop a like right now. It is the only thing that keeps stories like this one on the air, and every like tells the algorithm that another tired cook on another quiet deck deserves to have his shift heard. Share it with someone who also loves science fiction about a human standing between the impossible and the innocent. That is our whole channel. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next great Humanity Year epic we drop. And here is your question for the comments, and please answer it, because we read every one. Would you have taken the Warlord's seat and led 600 raiders under an iron ring? Or would you have taken the small ship and the quiet week and gone home to make stew for your sister? Keep your eyes on the empty dark out there. Keep your ladle where you can reach it. Keep looking up at the stars.